Hi everyone, welcome to School of Scarlet. I am so happy to have you here today. So today I'm going to be talking about which therapy as a therapist I believe is the most effective therapy that I still use today, even after having a non-dual awakening. So as y'all know, if you have been to my channel before, I have a background in therapy and counseling and teaching. If you are new here, I welcome you all to my channel. I am so happy to have you here. My background is in psychology and counseling. I've been doing counseling and psychology for over 18 years. I've worked in different capacities with different types of people, different issues, different scenarios, which require different kinds of therapies. So I've worked with anything from people that have had domestic violence issues, interpersonal relationship issues, marriage therapy, domestic violence, like I talk about, sexual assault. I worked with serious mental illness. I've worked with children, autism, behavioral issues, you name it, I have done it. I've worked with refugees. There is no end to this. So I have worked with pretty much every population that most people serve in the service industries like this. I've worked with the homeless, like I say, it has been with everyone. And in each of these jobs, a lot of them required maybe cognitive behavioral therapy. Some of them just had their own curriculums that they had come up with that had mixed therapies in it. So I've worked with many different things. And so over the years, I found a lot of them to be very, very limiting, very limiting. And especially when working in organizations that were government funded, there was kind of this really a glass ceiling for these therapies. They only went so far with clients. And so most clients were not able to be helped. What would happen was that they would get a little bit of help and they'd come back, and it would have to be a thing that they would have to get counseling or therapy on a weekly basis. And most of them, if they were serious enough, would end up in psych wards or hospitals several times per year. Now, this is serious mental illness. And I'm talking about people that with medication, therapy, all of these things, were still having these kind of thoughts of really hurting themselves on the daily basis several times a day, which was completely normal to everyone in these organizations. So this was normal. I was told that this was baseline for some people and that some people live like this for all of their life. And so it's just about giving them medication and just checking in with them. Now, I know because I've seen the changes in the people that I've worked with that this is not the case. When we have depression, when we have anxiety and it's extreme, severe, to where we're having to get help from therapists, where we're having to go maybe to hospitals, doctors, things like this. This is the very lowest part of us that is just going deep down, deep down. Now, this is not a bad thing. It's almost like a seed. When we plant a seed, it does have to be under the ground. I just planted my garden and there was some areas that I was kind of in a hurry recently, and I just went back and I threw in some charred Swiss seeds. Now, these seeds were not all the way covered, and I didn't take the time to make sure they were under the soil, the right amount of depth, and all of these things. So these seeds did not sprout, as opposed to the seeds that I did take care for and make sure that they were under the soil and had enough time in the darkness to be able to sprout. So you see, even for us humans, we do require time in the darkness. We do require some of these kind of times that seem like we're sad, we're angry, or frustrated in order to catapult us into our next level. This is very natural and it happens all of the time. So this is something that I've gotten to observe for people over the years. So it's very natural and normal to me. But for most people who are experiencing their first depression episode or their first episode of anxiety, it can be very scary and it doesn't feel like other people are experiencing the same things we are. We look around and we seem to see everybody doing everything that they need to do without a problem, without anxiety, without depression. But it's actually occurring for most people. Now, it is not something that we're meant to live with and just take a pill. Now, I've never heard in all of my years of counseling and working in the mental health field anyone say that any of these medications made them feel amazing. These things are only meant to help you for a short while. Now, the other part of this is the talk therapy, is the exposure therapy. And I'm about to explain to you which therapy I believe to be the best therapy. So, all of these things like medications and things, I'm not opposed to them. I've actually had to take this kind of medication before. And I will tell you, I only took it for a few months because I could already tell it wasn't that helpful. And that's why you don't hear very many people talking about it very much. Other things are a lot more helpful, like walking, getting out in the world, doing things, which is why my favorite therapy and the therapy that I still use to this day, even after a non dual awakening, is exposure therapy. Now, this is the best therapy that I can recommend for anyone, but is the most resistant therapy for most clients. Now, I'm sure most organizations would love to use more exposure therapy and try to do more of these things, but it's hard to do because you have to trust the client is exposing themselves to those fears, to those things that they're not doing when you're not there. As a therapist, I was lucky enough to work in organizations that allowed me to go to the stores with people. Like, I had people that were scared to go to Target. I had people that were scared to make a phone call, things like this. And I was able to be there to meet them or take them to these places and expose them to this. I had a man that hadn't left his property in 20 years. I was able to take him out to the donut shop. So I was the one that was actually in the field working with people. So I was able to expose them a little bit more. But most organizations don't really stick to this kind of therapy because there's not enough accountability to know whether or not the client is doing these therapies correctly. So it really requires a total level of trust and a person that's really willing to do this for themselves. Most of the people that come to therapy, a lot of times at the levels that I was working, were being forced to do it by the government. They had gotten in trouble with the law, and now that they were made to mandatory take certain things. Okay, so I had a lot of these clients. I also had clients that were mandated to take parenting classes, counseling, and things like that through CPS, Child Protective Services. So you can see that most of these people were not there by their own free will. And the other portion of them were there because of their spouse or their parent or caregiver had noticed a problem and was not able to handle it. So they brought them to get help. Most of these people were not ready to get help. So when, exposure care therapy came around for them, most of them reported back that they were doing these things, but of course they were not. So they were not seeing the changes. But for the community that I work with, most of the people that I have one-on-one sessions with are actually the viewers I have on YouTube, just like you. So if you are needing or wanting a one-on-one session for clarity, for mental health, for anything, relationship, whatever it happens to be, parenting, I have all of that wealth of wisdom, and I still do one-on-one sessions to this day. And what I do is I work more in the quantum field. So I work more with quantum work and just really working with things in this moment and kind of in the cosmos, that sort of thing. That's really what I work with more now because it's more immediate and helps people a lot quicker. So I connect with their energies as if it were mine. Now, the other kind of therapy that I really enjoy doing, especially for lifestyle, most people that I come in contact with are wanting changes within their actual lifestyle, their reality, what is happening here and now. They want to get married. They maybe want to pursue a different career. They maybe want to have a child one day. They have desires that are rising for them or things that are happening and settling out in a way that is opening their heart to a certain thing. They're maybe switching something up in their lives. And so this can be quite scary to do. And so one of the things that I do when I have one-on-one sessions with people is exposure therapy, having them go to the places or the things and situations that they are scared of. See, when you hear that quote that your greatest success or, whatever it happens to be is on the other side of fear, it is truly true. That is an actual true quote that I can tell you from experience is true. When we break through those things that we're scared of, we experience more of who we are. We get back from the universe more alignment closer to who we are. Whereas if we continue to do things that we don't want to do with the fear of, because we don't want to be who we really are, because of the fear of not being accepted, of being thought as unworthy, as being shunned, if we hide ourselves, we go further away from ourselves, further away from the alignment of who we truly are. So it becomes very painful. So, one of the things that I do is uncover what it is that someone is truly desiring, what someone is truly wanting in their heart. And most of the people I meet with actually don't know, and their hearts are quite closed. So, as we begin to open it up, we begin to have a little bit more of an opening, a little bit more of a seeing, a little bit more of a clarity as to what is the next step for this being. Now, as we connect with that, we have to expose ourselves to that. So people get so scared at this moment when the heart now tells them to go speak to that person that they had a crush on for so long. They get scared, they clam up, and they close. My job is to really push that person through accountability, through partnership, through our own energies meeting together to help that person expose themselves to the fear that they have so that they can experience the true wealth and abundance of whatever it is that they truly want. So let's say it is wanting marriage, but they're scared to death to speak to this woman that they've had a crush on, that they've looked at, that they've observed, that they know is just for them. And so they're scared to death. Now, with the exposure therapy, you can either meet with someone like myself, which is one of the best ways to do it, and have someone there partner with you to expose you and help you be accountable to actually taking the steps that your heart is opening up for you. And in speaking to that woman, to that person, suddenly now we have a conversation. Now we have energy flowing, giving and receiving between two beings. And when the energies are right, that can turn into something, that can turn into a spark, that can turn into a date, that can turn into a marriage. And it all started from exposure, from exposing yourself to those things that you are scared of. Without that, we will never get it. My mother always said this funny joke about a man who prayed to God to win the lottery. But he wouldn't win the lottery. He kept, praying for this, but he never won the lottery. So one day he was just so frustrated that he yelled out to God and he said, God, why don't I win the lottery? I pray to you every day and night that I win this lottery. And it's been years and years and I am faithful and nothing has happened. And God said, but you haven't bought the lottery ticket. How do you expect to win the lottery? So that's just a funny little thing, but we can tell people when they are frustrated in a situation that they truly haven't even put their feet into. We have to get our feet wet. We have to start somewhere, even if it's just by dipping one toe into the water. That one toe will lead to the next toe and the next toe. Before you know it, your feet will be in the water. And before you know it, you'll be swimming, my friend. So it's as simple as that. It's all about exposing yourself to those fears that you have now. Now, the old style of therapy, for more, the style of therapies that I was used to giving was really very much into going into the past, figuring out what your traumas were, going there, feeling that. And so that is one way of therapy. But what I am coming to you today, the one therapy that as a therapist, I believe is the most most beneficial therapy, quickest therapy that's going to get you to where you want to be, will be the exposure therapy. And you can do that, like I say, with partnering like someone like myself, a professional who has done this, or you yourself can begin to expose yourself to these things. This is a therapy that they use a lot with people that have anxiety, people with autism, people with social kind of issues and things like that. This is a therapy that they always use with OCD. This kind of thing changes your behaviors as well. So as you begin to expose yourself to these things and your anxiety and things you begin to notice and work with, if you work with a professional, you can go through this a lot quicker because they will ask you certain questions that will open certain insights to you that you wouldn't naturally have right away. So they kind of help you with this. And that's what exposure therapy is. It helps you to overcome those fears and to also reflect back to yourself some behaviors that you're doing unconsciously that are actually not very helpful, actually holding you back in a lot of ways. So, as a therapist, my favorite therapy is exposure therapy because it keeps you in this moment. It doesn't keep you in the past, it keeps you in the present, and it keeps you moving towards your heart, towards those things that are now coming for you. So, if you need any help along your journey, I offer one-on-one sessions, courses, all of that. I have multitude of things, books, anything. And that's all in my description that you can go check out now. So I want to encourage you today to begin to expose yourself to those things that you're scared of, to push past the fear, to experience bliss, freedom, and total freedom of your being, authenticity to who you are. Because, my friend, you are beautiful and you are needed in this world. And I can't wait to see you out in this world shining your light. I love you all.